So Stuart, if we can talk now just about turnaround companies before we hand over to the floor. But turnaround, you have had your turnarounds in your time. You've been very successful at that. Some people are coined as turnaround CEOs. Others sort of become a turnaround CEO or leader by accident because their company's not doing particularly well. What advice would you give to a company in the room or outside that is pointing south and they need to redirect the ship to get back up again? So the fundamentals, if you like, of a turnaround.
The first thing is don't get to a situation where you have to be turned around. But that's entirely within your own control by and large, because what tends to happen is companies go through cycles. They all start doing better. They all start believing their own PR. They all start therefore saying, well, this has been really hard, but it's all fantastic, isn't it? They all start actually losing focus of what the day-to-day is, and they all wake up the following week, or the following morning, or the following month and find the world's passed them by. That's what happens. Doesn't matter whether you're Marks and Spencer. Look at Tesco's. Anybody from Tesco here? Yes, there we are. I mean, a great business, and I've long said that Tesco's a great business, but they've got a shitty time. Right? Everybody thought they were invincible. Everybody thought they could take their 33 or whatever it is % market share to 40% market share. Everybody thought they were going to conquer California. Everybody thought it was amazing. Well, I have to tell you, without being clever, I used to go to some Tesco in Marylebone High Street and thought, if I come in here again, this place is falling down. It ought to be shut down by the health and safety people, because they didn't invest in the core UK business, and the service element wasn't very good. And, that's what management are now tackling, and I think they've done a really good job. But, all businesses have accidents. So you have to keep constantly aware. The mantra is in the global world today, you've got to have every single antennae that you've got, every sort of piece of information and intelligence coming into you all the time. You've got to know that we live in a 24-hour real-time world. You've got to know that if David Beckham goes to a party tonight in, I don't know, Los Angeles and wears a white tie, somebody will come into Marks and Spencer tomorrow and say, have you got any white ties? It's true. Because you'll have seen him on YouTube, or they'll have seen him on social media, or they'll have seen him on the TV, or they'll have seen him in OK Magazine next week, right? That's what happens. Equally, so we live in that. So you have to be aware of all those trends. Music trends, film trends, fashion trends, food trends. Look how we now live in the UK. We've got the most dynamic food industry in the world. The freshest and the most dynamic and the most innovative, right? People go off to Turkey, they want Turkish food. People go off somewhere, they want this food. They want us to produce it, right? So you've got to know it's understanding what people want just a little bit ahead of when they want it.
How do you do that?
A lot of it is, well, by having the right intelligence coming in, but also trusting your judgment and having good people around who do that and they spot it. And if you're half a step ahead of your customers, you're about right. If you're a full step ahead of the customers, you're too far ahead. And if you're in line with what your customers are thinking, you're a loser. So that's what good, successful companies do. And then you're going to find that seam, and when you find it, you've got to keep mining it. But remember, the mine is not inexhaustible. Then you've got to find another mine. Yeah. And that's what good management does. And that's not chief executives. It's about putting together a good management team who've got that sort of, constant, ability to reinvent. We'll see what happens with Apple. Apple's been through a very interesting time because, they lost their chief executive, they've got a new chief executive, they've got they've got market share beyond belief. Yeah. Can they keep it up? But Mr. Samsung's not sitting on his arse, is he?
So Stuart, talking about, if we can, Tesco there you just mentioned, I mean, a lot of people think that the reason why M&S is doing well, but you could argue it's not having the growth spurt that potentially you would have wanted at the time you left. Tesco certainly, with its US division closing down a Fresh and Easy, you could argue that it's certainly profits are down by almost a half. Some people think it's because Sir Stuart's not running that ship or Sir Terry's not running Tesco. Now, to what extent is that true?
Well, it's not true, but I can't avoid having some responsibility for what took place on my watch. I like to think, I would say this because I'm running my own PR, that I tried to catch up for the decade of underinvestment that M&S went through between 1994 and 2004, when the business squeezed the capex spending to the extent that we had stores that Tesco had recently where the air conditioning was not working, the asbestos was still around there, the escalators were sort of rotting, the floors needed doing, the lighting wasn't very good, and the stores looked shit. Well, you can't do that if you're in the shop business because people want to go to a decent environment. So we accelerated that thing, but there's a lag time. Now, I've never commented on M&S's performance since I've left. They've lost some market share in clothing in the last year or two. Is that self-inflicted? Is it a market issue? Is it fixable? Time will tell. Do I think the brand is in better nick than it used to be? Yes. Do I think that, you know, your mantra to yourself ought to be, I'd like to leave the business in better shape than I inherited it for the next person? That's what you should try and do. But, you know, no business is sort of invulnerable from attack. And no business is, you know, it's not just Terry Leahy or indeed when I was at M&S.Me, it's about the right team.
Stuart, you mentioned there about picking on trends, and picking up on an early trend is very important. But the key disruptive innovations that companies can identify, would you say that is, you can rely on your customers to do that, or do you?
No, the customers will tell you if you're on the right track. I mean,
Yeah.
good example is Ocado. You know,
Yeah.
that's a disruptor, but it's not proven case yet. It's not making any money,
Right?
Or not making enough money. You know, what is the biggest change, instrument of change in the world? This thing, you know. This thing now. I was until recently chairman of a company called Mobile Money Network, which is a secure bank grade platform which allows you to transfer money anywhere, any place with security. You know, if you go to Africa, they never had bricks and mortar banks. You can see a Maasai tribesman standing in the middle of the Kenyan bush transferring money from New York to Mombasa. And he believes what the balance says on the piece of thing on the front. I can't remember the exact number. My Ocado colleagues will tell me at the back. 25% at least of Ocado's orders now come off some sort of tablet or mobile phone. We were the first retailer to put a mobile phone app in, which allows you up till whatever time tonight, 9 o'clock, to change your Ocado order for a delivery tomorrow morning. You can do that on the bus or on the train or on there. Is that cool or not cool? Is that what people want? I remember when we introduced an app at Marks and Spencer to buy stuff and people said we were bonkers. Well, they do a lot of trade on them now. Yeah. So, you know, this is what's dictated. And customer will tell you if they like it or they don't like it. And this is what's going to happen. We'll all be walking around soon because we're busy. You know, on a Saturday morning, instead of me having to sit home and watch the Lions having a tough match in Sydney, I'll be able to go and do something else or watch it on my live streaming on my watch. At the same time as tell the time, change the Ocado order, and make a date with my girlfriend.
Google devices.
It's great, isn't it?
Yeah. Maybe we can interview you on the watch here. You wouldn't have to be here.
So that is a trend.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But it's got to be smart management at top that pick that out, not the customer, basically.
Well, you've got to back what you believe. It's spotting. If you look, it is about spotting the trend, and it's about going for it. But you know, there might be 10 things you spot. What you should do is be able to chase all 10 of them. Yeah. Not bet the ranch on each of them, knowing that actually only 2 or 3 might go somewhere. And if one of them does go somewhere, that one will pay for the other 9 that didn't go anywhere. So, but it's, you know, you can't not do anything.
Yeah. It's like
you can't believe you've arrived. You haven't arrived. The only place I guarantee you've arrived is when you've died at the crematorium. You've arrived, right? But there's no afterwards.